Common Council meeting September 5th, 2023.
Okay, 6:02, we'll get the meeting starting. Call the order, please. Roll call.
Councilmember Scott.
Present.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Pinello.
Here.
Councilmember Lane.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson is reported absent. Councilmember Carpenter is reported absent. Councilmember Beckwith.
Present.
Thank you for speaking up.
Councilmember Michaels is recorded absent.
Councilmember Thompson and Carpenter both had work-related issues, emergencies that come up at the last minute. Dance allergies, I'm gonna say to the college and so they did call, so I just want to make sure that's clear. Can all rise for salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we can all have a moment of silent reflections for Douglas Henty, and while his family recovers from the grievance, that's got us for that. Thank you. Privilege of the floor, Mr. Dexter.
Mike Dexter, Chairman of the Landscape and Design Commission.
Not on. Slide that button.
Mike Dexter, Chairman of the Landscape and Design Commission, better known as the Tree Commission. Before I say anything about the trees, I'd like to have just, Mike McDermott passed during last week. Mike was a classmate of mine at St. Mary's. Mike has done immeasurable things for veterans, both in Homer, in Cortland County. He was the past commander of the New York State Legion. Mike was just a great volunteer. Sadly, he was nominated for the Boy Scout honor, and he's passed before he's going to receive it, so we'll probably have to pick another person, but Mike was certainly very, very active locally. Like I said, I've known Mike since high school. Unfortunately, he died a little bit young, but just to let people know how active Mike was in Veterans Affairs in Cortland County. I'm here representing the Tree Commission. Basically, we are trying to sign people up for trees for next year. My Landscape and Design Commission, we've selected 5 different trees. If you go on the website, portland.org, the trees are listed on the website. We would like to get a number of people signing up also. There are a lot of ash trees out there which will be taken down. I just talked to Nick. Several have come down already. I've had several people ask me if they could get a replacement for their ash trees. You may still have an ash tree standing, but please put an application in. If you don't get it this year, you'll be on a list for next year. The ash trees, if they're not dead this year, they will be dead, and they will all be coming down in the cities right away. So go on the city's website, apply for a tree, get it in before probably the end of September, so we can get your name on the list for next year.
Like, how many trees do you have approximately to give that you have available?
It depends on how much you give us for trees.
That was a loaded question.
Why'd you bring that up?
We don't have a grant that I know of right now because we're working on an inventory, which we haven't done in 15 years. Steve Royals is going to assist us with an inventory. Last year, we used money that you gave us. We planted 29 trees last year. We're in hopes of planting at least 30 this year, but it depends on how much money we get from the council. Like I said, there is no grant this year for trees. But we hope that you're generous so that we can at least plant 30 trees throughout the city.
All right, thank you.
And the ash trees, like I said, over a period of time will be replaced. We just hope that people will get one of these trees, even if your tree is standing, you still may have room for a tree to be planted next to the tree. When it comes down, we can plant another tree if you want 2 trees, but don't let the ash trees be a hindrance as far as applying for a tree. I do have applications, if any of you would like to give applications to any of your constituents. We're really pushing trees, having lost that number of trees, and there's an awful lot of planting spaces in the city. We just don't like to hear people say, I don't want a tree because I have to rake the leaves, it does this or does that. We're losing more trees than we're planting, recently, so apply for a tree.
Thank you.
Like, I have some of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thanks for that committee for all they do. They do a lot of hard work, and Steve Wells is working with the college students and the college to go, assess all of our trees within the city, which is a couple-year project, so we appreciate the partnership working with the college to do that. I certainly appreciate this tree committee and keeping things in check and working with us on our tree that we're planning downtown as well. Next, I have the finance report. As we know, Ms. Henty is out, personal issues. So I'll just give you a highlight. There is an attachment that was provided in the documents. The general funds are lagging, their expenditures are due largely to the fact that this month's entries and real statement payments only require an additional step to journal entries. So we're just a little bit behind on the balance sheet. And real estate revenues in this report largely reflect values from February of 2023. While some individual lines are overspent, departments are largely on track with annual allocations. Equipment repair expenses remain an item to watch in the upcoming months. We have one of those items on our agenda tonight as we talk. And we would expect to have some more equipment repair line probably in November that we're going to have to address in that aspect. The external audit. So the external audit is on the September 19th agenda, as we've been discussing along, and all of our meetings where we've been and posted on these audits. Again, due to numerous errors that weren't submitted previously or done erroneously. We have many areas that have to be corrected, and some of them are our debt load service, which, that news came last week. You'll be aware of that afterwards, but we started off what we were making decisions on being a 60% loan balance is 80%. So we'll give more to that coming when that audit comes out. I have not seen the draft yet, but that will be coming, I'm sure, between now and next week, and we'll get prepared for that next meeting. So that's the external audit for 21 and 22. 22 is on target for what time we should be. 2021, there's a lot of cleanup to do, and there's going to be a lot of reflections in the 2022 that affected 2021 without putting things in separate buckets. The budget development process is in, it's on August 30th. Department head meeting will start the process, and the department heads are working diligently at putting things together, so we appreciate that. So we're trying to get ahead of it, where it's not an ideal budget year. We can improve it from last year, which is better, and next year we'll hopefully get it all done. And the grant and capital projects, those reports are also listed in your financial documents for year to date. Anybody have any questions on the financial? All right, so I didn't do it as well as Lisa would have, but I gave you the basic overview, and there's more in your packets if you want more detail to what it is and a breakdown of every year-to-date spending as we've always provided since we've been here. Mayor's report. So I have a few items. Number one, our hydrant helpers. We pulled that name today. So as you all know, for the last 2 years, and quite a few, I'm not sure what that number is. People volunteered to paint the hydrants. You can see on this paper that they got paint all over it and everything. I thought it would be a visual aid, but Katie Francis is the entry winner. She painted the corner of Elm and Pomeroy, hydrant number 334. And so we pull the name and they get a gift card. So we offer all the names in as everybody doesn't do that. So I encourage you, we're getting pretty far along on most of the hydrants. So it looks a lot better. Those little details make a big difference. And there's a great way to do it. That's a great way for the community to become active and to do those things. So it's kind of a great thing to have. So thank you, Youth Bureau and Fire Department, for organizing that and making that happen. And thank you to Katie and all the rest that have been really helpful in getting our city looking better one hydrant at a time.
Mr. Dover, the DPW is instrumental in that as well.
That's true. Yes, and the DPW, Mr. Dooley, has been instrumental as far as getting the paint supplies to everybody, getting everything addressed, and making sure the numbers get put back on the hydrants as they're needed. So we appreciate the interoperation between the different departments on doing that. Thank you all three for doing this. So we continue, as I report here, we continue with our housing and our homelessness problems. I've had meetings as late as Thursday of this week with social services and other agencies within our county to try to come up with solutions, short-term and long-term. As I bring up in the meeting, we get a 5-minute plan, I mean a 5-year plan. And Alderman Beckwith was dealing with one outside just as we came in. So we're working with the library and they're trying to get people off the steps and working towards doing something. And then the picnic tables now approaching cafeterias and their needs. So we'll continue to try to work on solutions and try to get things fixed. But it's an everyday event and everyday struggle, but housing is definitely a concern and a need. And we'll continue to work hard and diligent at it. I appreciate everybody's help from the other agencies and within that have been helping to work on those solutions. Mural Festival is this weekend. That went very well, and we're going to be able to display a lot of those artwork projects on closing off dumpster areas for some of the renovations that's happening on one of the buildings on Main Street. So you'll be able to see more of those. There's a couple of them out now to do that. The construction update on Main Street. So there's obviously the over budget. We're running behind. So there would be more to do that. We're still in discussions with the architectural review, but we're looking at it somewhere around 40% increase in the cost. So that's something we're gonna all have to deal with together and real with. I just want to give you a quick heads up on that. Parking, so there was a soft release that was planned on for parking. It got released by social media on the Booth website. This was a draft press release that should not have been released and talked about paid parking downtown, which obviously we haven't talked about paid parking. So that is being cleaned up and that will be addressed appropriately in the near future. But DPW is working hard and working long days trying to put together signs amongst everything else they're working on. They're doing a new second row of grindings coming up to help out with this area to store dogs on a temporary basis. And trying to address a lot of the other short-term needs that we've had come up. So they've really stepped up and done a great job in those. We're excited about taking and grinding more streets, although it becomes difficult when you have it. Main Street with Court Street shut down now is probably as bad as it's going to get as we're getting. But most of the business owners have been very receptive and very positive and trying to make the best of it and had some good successes. We've been watering weekends for dinners and lunchtime areas so we can get the need of everybody else met with the college students coming back. With the college students coming back, it's put a little more burden on our police department, which is already overburdened. They have had, so far this year, 199 felonies, 85 arrests of those felonies, which is, we're averaging about 1 felony a day in that detectives bureau, which is short one person as we speak because of the sergeant retiring. We're waiting for the list to rehire and get our trained officers up to speed so we can fill those spots. So, they've been working very hard and diligent covering the dog enforcement. Year to date, our expenditures have been about 15,500. We're still learning, we're improving, we're making it better. And by having a kennel to store them temporarily will help significantly with the cost. They would help us with the long term. And we'll be talking about that part-time position to fill that to help with that as we go. The code office, again, has been working very hard. I mean, if you drive around visibly, you see the difference. They've issued, I don't remember offhand, in the dozens, I think probably close to 3 dozen issuances of illegal cars that are not licensed or registered, registered in the city, to try to clean up some of that area as well. They've issued 1,000 violations, or right about 1,000, they just had a celebration of 900, they're hitting about 1,000 right now, which exceeds any year previous total, so that's a proactive approach. Trash cans have been an issue, you know, this weekend, the police had 5, jump back to the police, they had 5 arrests for noise this weekend, so they're being, again, super proactive in doing it. A lot of information went out to students this weekend from the fire and police department to try to educate them on what expectations are. The college through the town and gown committee has made a great effort to try to make those expectations what they are. And certainly, we all forget quickly, we have to remind them. And I appreciate these departments stepping up and making these good things happen to remind people in a gentle way, in a positive way, the best way we can to make that happen. So appreciate the improvements on the streets as well as the improvements, blacktop oil, improvement on the streets for cleanliness and the police aspect as well. Youth Bureau football starts, small fry football starts this weekend. Their games are at the high school, so a good partnership there, working together with doing that. The fields are being lined tomorrow. I think they're demoing some kind of robotic in their line fields tomorrow at 10. There might be some interest if somebody wanted to see that. The splash pad is still open. Trunk or treat is on October 28th, still accepting applications from businesses, not-for-profits that want to host a trunk or treat on Court Street here. And school starts tomorrow, so it's going to be back to, I ran into a crossing guard and certainly here we go with that, again, with that traffic, but remind everybody to drive safe with that. So does anybody else have any questions for me? All right, so then we'll do award reports. Award 1.
All right, so it's been a while since we had a meeting. In my ward, we've got a few streets coming up to be paved, which very grateful that DPW is going to get to a few extra this year. That'll be happening throughout the neighborhoods. Last round of rain we had, quite a bit of severe flooding on Alvina. Solutions have been drawn up for that, and I believe between Nick and the mayor, I believe those are all going to be done before the end of the year, correct?
Sorry.
Alvina?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
That's correct.
So the huge flooding problem there is going to be rectified. Porch Fest, if you didn't go, you missed potentially the best one. It was unbelievable. The streets were clogged, the people were happy, everybody got along. There was great music. I mean, talk about some local talent and great music. It wasn't just Uncle Joe who can play a guitar and hum a little on somebody's porch. There was really good class act bands that people go and pay to go to. I was there for the entire thing, beginning to end, and it was just wonderful. Thought the whole event was outstanding. Food trucks, outstanding. People at all the booths and center just welcoming. One of the most friendly events I've ever been to in Portland. Just a great thing in Ward 1. I thought it was unbelievable. And then the fourth thing is, don't forget the 9/11 ceremony coming up next Monday. That will be 8:30 a.m. at Courthouse Park. It's a really good ceremony. It's done absolutely awesome, and it's an important thing for us. So if you've got any time and can make it there at 8:30 a.m. For the 9/11 ceremony on Monday, that would be awesome. That's all I got.
Thank you. Ward 2.
Ward 2, I've been having difficulties with my city council email, because I switched, well, I got a new iPad, so it's not on there anymore, but I have the answer to the solution. Meanwhile, my phone number is always up and running, 607-756-7864. I've been doing kind of an informal survey of childcare in the community, so I'm really interested in hearing from people who are having difficulties getting childcare or childcare providers who are providing it. So please give me a call. I'm working on finalizing a date for a Ward 2 meeting to discuss Parker and any other concerns. And certainly other people are welcome to come to that if they have concerns about what's happening with Parker School. But we are also meeting regularly to address those concerns as a newly formed committee around the Parker School. I want to thank Codes and the police department and the fire department for their efforts with all of the students moving in this weekend. It seems like everybody's in their spots and ready to go to school, or not this weekend, last weekend. This weekend was a little crazy. Thank you for keeping a handle on things. I guess it got really loud in some parts of the city, and this is how it usually starts, and then hopefully they mellow out and get their noses in their books. So that's it for Ward 2.
Thank you. Spinella.
Okay, Ward 3. So a couple of issues. I've been working with Codes and the mayor over some code questions in the 3rd ward, and we're still working on that. And also just to let people know, and they're behind, from Forest to Elwood to Athens runs George Street. And I want to thank DPW because he started working on it. How long will it take?
We'll be done with the day, the next month.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. That's good. And that's going to be really nice, especially for people who walk to the waterworks from those streets.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Just to reiterate, to the end, it'll be done with this.
That's good. But we are addressing codes, and I do appreciate Roy and the mayor and just, you know, calming people down about some codes issues. And that's about it for me.
Let's thank you for.
I had people call me about parking, student parking on Pearl Street. Spoke to the mayor, spoke to the chief. There are signs that say 2-hour parking, and the police are coming around more often to ticket people who stay there longer than 2 hours. Received a call about needing garbage totes. Spoke to the mayor, and he assured me that they're on their way eventually. Code took care of overgrown grass up the street next to the American Legion. It was beyond overgrown, and Roy took care of it. Actually, between the fire chief and Roy, it got taken care of. I also attended the Parker School meeting. Yes, bless you. Attended the New York State Comptroller's breakfast with a constituent up in Syracuse, and participated in interviews for 2 new firefighters. And amazing, absolutely amazing. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Spinella.
Couple things, I see this come up. Obviously, it's a good program they all started. I want to drill the fire department a little bit. Hydrant number 334. Where's it at?
I stated it before.
Roy and something.
Well, what's the static pressure on there? When's the last time it's been tested? You're not doing very good here. No, it's good. I just busted. Another thing that they mentioned about all these tickets that, you know, we're all issuing, we're not here to make money on the tickets. We're just enforcing what should have been enforced. So I just want to make that clear. I don't want these constituents, everybody thinking we're all of a sudden they're just trying to grab all this money. And it should have been enforced, and, you know, it was always neglected, but now we're doing our job. I mean, just want to make that clear.
Thank you for that, appreciate it. The minutes, did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? Any questions, any motion to accept? So, Mr. Scott, Mr. Beckwith, all those in favor?
I
Approve resolution, agenda item number 1. Hold on one second. Amend the 2023 adopted budget by $29,420 to recognize and appropriate additional revenue, including donations and grants.
Resolved by the city of Portland Common Council that the 2023 budget be and hereby is amended in the amount of $29,420 as outlined in the accompanying table. And be it further resolved that the Common Council declares Unication G1 pagers, charging bases, and accessory surplus items.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Mr. Scott. So I just want to take the time to recognize the private funds that we've received across the board here. I think, we got the Bulletproof Vest grant with the K9 funds. Mr. Cleary, $10,000 in the pickleball, there's more to come for that. Porch Fest donations, great event that gives back to the community in so many ways that can't get us to thank you for that work. Donation from the Isom family and the escrow for the other so I just want to recognize those people. It's great to have that. And hoping to get more to help with that pickleball as we go along. More sponsors that are going to put their logo on the corners to help sponsor the corner of their courts. So that is being heavily hit starting tomorrow and Thursday. That project is going to see. So as long as we're talking about
You're talking about pickleball?
that. Yeah, pickleball.
You're gonna get our challenge in for them?
Yes, we are. So you're going down before you're ever
I'll believe it when I see it.
At least your oxygen's there, but, we'll do that. So anybody else have any questions?
Tickets will be sold.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out a way to generate some money to donate to the city function or
Well, I'll pay the
whatever.
last, so we usually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take, maybe it's the end, it could be legal for that. And the chefs event too that we're doing, I think the chief, Sandy's doing it as well, for the YW, which is a great event. So I'm talking trash there too, with all the chefs there, I said I have no chance.
He was right, you got I remember a chili thing he didn't even show up. Oh, yes, and his daughter was a chili.
I know, right? Yeah, I lost it down. All right, we'll move on. Any questions on the budget amendments? Okay, so we'll move it, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Silliman.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Agenda item number 2, sound device permit application submitted by Scott Heath for city parks and public spaces.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council does hereby approve the sound device permit application as submitted by Scott Heath for use of a public address system within city parks and public spaces during the hours of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And be it further resolved that the permit shall not limit use of said device to one fixed location. Be it further resolved that the Common Council does hereby exempt Mr. Keith Heath from the $250 per day fee.
Motion. Mr. Scott. So. Discussion.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
The nonprofit was signified by the check. There's paperwork, there's numbers that we should have.
I think we could validate, Mr. Heath is here, if you want to address the council's question, how can you prove the non-profit status, do you have non-profit status?
The actual,
Filed by the state,
I am not a 501c3. I am a member of a church that is, as I'm going out, I feel that maybe a non-profit organization will actually, be created, but I am not doing this for monetary gain whatsoever. I'm simply going out. I do have something I can read, to the council that I did draw up today. if we
well,
address this.
I think we'll just address the questions first, and then.
Sure,
They have
yep.
more, I think it's.
Yeah.
So, could you apply as yourself, not as a 501c3, correct?
That is correct.
So that would be, not for profit.
Okay, so it should not, nonprofit should not be checked, right? It shouldn't be checked.
Yes, because he's not, even though he's not making money,
Right.
he's not making a profit, but he's not a non-for-profit
Right.
legally.
But
Right.
the nonprofit, that applies to the cost right? It has nothing to do with whether or not you get approved for the use of the corn.
Right, it's just that it would be a fee.
Right, so that would be, that's why I offered it to be, and so,
Right, so you would, if this resolution went through, the concern would be setting that precedent.
right,
I would be cautious of that,
and yeah.
knowing that process.
And Scott, I have a question, is you got in here between the hours of 10 AM and 6 PM,
Yes.
which days? There's
Um,
no days listed,
Typically Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
so you'd be busy Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays from 10 AM to 6 PM.
That would be my allowance, we could say. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be there like, let's say, for instance, on Sundays, I'm typically at church on Sunday mornings. But if there is a group that's gathering, at one of these parks and wants me to show up with my speaker, which I do have, I took some decibel readings so that everybody knows that it's, you know, I know back in May when we had addressed this, there was some concerns about the noise nuisance and things like that.
Yeah.
Especially you had mentioned that you had problems back in May with your neighbors and such. And one of the issues that we have is that there's nothing on the common law codes, the bylaws that address decibels. So that is something that I did write up. If you want me to read that, I can, but also understanding the problems that you guys are having with the colleges, that could also be resolved with decibel bylaws.
So, just from the picture you just flashed.
Yes.
My question is, this device, your microphone mounts on the top of your phone?
This
That's a
That's it.
separate device.
This is a decibel reader.
Oh,
So if I turn this on right now, we're gonna get different decibels right now. We're at 76, 75, 73. I have written down, our pledge of allegiance this evening, was measured at 70 decibels. And Mr. Beckwith's acknowledgement of his presence was at a rich 85.
and so how many decibels would you be?
I wouldn't want to go over 80. As I sat with the mayor last week, we both understand the OSHA laws, or their requirement of, what would you say, their safety.
Safety guidelines.
Yeah.
Maximum that's maybe here.
Is Right, most cities, and small towns allow their business districts, 85 decibels until 11 PM. While residential areas are up to 75 decibels, at the property line of the residents. And this has to do with me. I've done hours of research in this whole thing, and I kind of surmised it right here. And I think it does speak to, these other things that are kind of going on. So, are there any other questions? I really would like to. read
Yeah,
that.
I have another
Yeah,
question,
please.
so if we approve this permit, so you can move the sound device to any location?
That's one of the things that I have addressed in here. Yeah, like I was thinking I could do it at, I could stand in near an intersection. It's not anything that is going to be, distracting. I've actually done this before and I've tested it out. And again, I sort of addressed that there, but yes. And then in like residential neighborhoods, the decibels would be lower than that. I'm not here to be a nuisance, but I am here to be heard. Again, I think it's best addressed by just reading that.
So I just want to be clear, so you will go around to different streets throughout the city?
Yes, mainly parks and places where people would gather. But yeah, it wouldn't be like necessarily a staple. Parks are more of my place as I've invested again, kind of getting into that, but I've been investing my time in parks.
When you talk about residential, do you mean parks like Yeaman that back up to a neighborhood, or do you mean you might just take your speaker and walk down through the city?
I think the easiest way as far as, yeah, I think just being allowed to do that simply is part of our First Amendment right to be able to be heard. And that's where, the vested by the First Amendment kind of comes into play. As far as the decibel readings though, which again, I think this is an important issue that needs to be resolved, but as I put in here, I think that's number 10 on your list as far as your priorities and your bucket list, is trying to figure out what decibel readings the city should have with all these other things going on. But it will definitely help, you know, really kind of draw boundaries, put a line in the sand, especially for the officers trying to enforce such laws. So, you know, whereas it would be in a residentially zoned area, you have this set up on your bylaw. Where it's a commercial or business district, it's set up and possibly a different decibel reading. Of course, that's up to, you know, whatever you guys decide. But that is from my research that I've done, that most cities and even small towns have this agreement, because even most small towns do have bars, especially since COVID, they have outdoor seating and now outdoor amplification. Sir,
Scott, so you do your decibel reading, so if I'm walking down the street with my phone, listening to music, what would that be the decibel for that?
if you're listening to music on your phone,
Roughly, that.
it's always gonna depend on certain factors. It's gonna depend on reflection. So what I want to kind of show you is, this is at 50 feet away from the back of the monument over here in Courtyard Park. At 50 feet away with my Bose S1 Pro, which is a small speaker about this big, right? Good quality sound, it's not scratchy, you know, it's nice and crisp. At 50 feet away, it reads at 76.7 decibels, and that was a good, what I had playing was some music. And the loudest at one certain point the music ever got was almost 80. But that's like the average right there. Now, I want to show you this. At 20 feet away from my speaker, playing the same song, we're reading at 71.2. And that was, again, an average, and that's because of the way the sound is projected. And from this Bose speaker, wherever that is pointed, it's gonna project louder in that direction by far. That's why I did 50 feet, and the decibel reading was louder when you're facing it. But even just off to the side, at 71 decibels, we're looking at, you know, a diesel truck going 40 miles per hour, 50 feet away is 84 decibels. Trying to find something we can really relate to here. A car wash at 20 feet is 89 decibels. Garbage disposal at 80.
I think
You
it's
know what I mean?
more important that it's all relevant based on where you're at. If you're standing in the corner of Main Street, you're reflecting off 55 Main Street, brick building. It's gonna be different at 20 feet than it is in front of a park when you're absorbing the grass or near a monument. So recognize that. So
And also vehicles passing by in intersections too are typically running at about 70 decibels.
So I think that's an important factor, but I just sort of decide this, you know, what we have to decide here is, you know, what that decimal level might be, what that would look like, or maybe some kind of regulation that would have, how that would handle, how that would be dealt with, and then also, what precedents you're gonna open up.
Mayor,
I think,
if I may, one of the things that I've always appreciated is that the police don't have to get persnickety about decibels with our policy. If you are disturbed at any time of the day or night, if you can't enjoy the peace and quiet of your home, or wherever you are, you can call the police and they can come and assess the situation. So it doesn't get down to decibels, especially when you can have people who turn it down and they leave and they crank it up and then they have to come back. We don't want to use up their time that way. And I feel so strongly about the good that you're doing and about your ministry and about your story and your goal. Your life trajectory is just incredible. It's remarkable that you're a remarkable human being. And I honor that and respect that, but I just can't vote for this, and I'm really torn about it. The First Amendment protects the right to speech. It doesn't protect the right to be heard necessarily. You can speak, and My problem with this is giving you carte blanche to use your speaker whenever you feel called to do so. If it were a one-time thing, you were having an event and you invited people and you wanted to gather in the park, I could get behind that. And if your church sponsored you and we could waive the fee, I could get behind that. But to do it on a regular basis, whenever the spirit moves you, I just can't. I can't put that. I'm so sorry.
Well, and the other
Let
part,
me offer just one note from the code here that I didn't specify in the resolution. There's really two bases within the code for issuance of a sound device permit. One is for a fixed location,
Mhm.
and the other is mounted on a motor vehicle to move around. So those are the two situations under which the code authorizes.
Okay,
permits.
but even so, I don't, even if it was a different message on a vehicle going around town, I could not vote for that to happen on a recurring random basis. I just, a one-time thing we could do, just, I'm sorry.
Does this also include, people that are just walking with their Bluetooth speakers?
With the Bluetooth speaker, if you're being disturbed by somebody walking with a Bluetooth speaker, because I've had this situation where somebody is playing music in their yard and it's got foul language, and I live next door to 10 children. And it's offensive, and I'll call the police and say, could you please get them to turn their music down? And they'll do it. It doesn't matter what time of day, just because it's, you know, you're disturbing somebody else's peace. So they have to turn their music down.
So this causes disturbances, we do have the right to pull them, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, that could be.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, I thought I read this right, and I just wanted to verify. The other recourse, should this ever get out of control, is we have the right to pull the permit. You know, I think everybody up here is saying they'd be more comfortable if they had a schedule of where and when, or, you know, at least a loose schedule of where and when.
Yeah.
Not that you'd be here, there, everywhere, walking around, you know, corner of Main Street, whatever. But as a council, we also have the right to pull that permit should this become an annoyance. I think some of the stuff you've done has just been outstanding.
Thank you.
And I've heard from others how it's affected people, and I think you're doing a good job, especially considering we do have a drug problem here, we do have a homeless problem here. And, you know, if issuing this permit affects one of those people and, you know, it's not gonna annoy the masses, then I'm in. I do understand though that what the objections are. This needs to feel like it's a controlled situation. And I don't think some people up here are getting warm fuzzies about it being a
Sure.
controlled
Now-
situation. But I am with your First Amendment right. I do understand that this has helped people already.
Yep. Now, I do know that this is like this is just me coming here for this permit. It's not like everybody else in the city is doing this. You have my word that if an officer comes to me and says, hey, Scott, you need to turn that down, by all means, because I'm not here to be a nuisance.
I want to clarify, I want to go back and clarify the whole, $250 per day fee. He's not a non-exempt, the churches. So therefore, how can we waive the permit fees?
So the way the code reads, with regard to waiving the fee, it can be waived for any service, quote unquote, service club, religious organization, charitable organization, or educational institution. And that will promote the general health, safety, and welfare of the community. The purpose of the sound device is to promote general health, safety, and welfare of the community.
Can I ask another question?
Certainly.
If you are voted down, will this stop you from doing your ministry?
No, I know for a fact that my voice can be raised up to 90 decibels for a good 45 minutes, and I think that's more of an annoyance than the Bose speaker. God's given me a good set of pipes. I just, like I mentioned before, back in May, I have a wife, I have a job, a family, I mean, you know, I need my voice in other arenas, but as a calling, I have to do what I have to do, and I'm trying to do this the legal way, the right way, going about this and being very transparent with the entire community, because this is, so to speak, my Jerusalem. This is really where I feel the call to be right now. Eventually, I feel that I may be going elsewhere, and this might be getting turned over to somebody else, you know, and then, you know, Portland's gonna get shaped up, right? That's the hope here. And I'll be moving into other areas. But what I have found is that there is a desire, just like I have and I now possess, for a faith community to come around me and to lift me up out of my addictions and out of all that muck and mire. The fact of the matter is, these people, for the most part, they will not walk into a brick and mortar building. And so going out there on the streets and being able to have the opportunity to, you know, play music and be able to stop the music and use a mic and say, hey guys, did you catch that one line in there where it said such and such, and be able to expound on that and be able to teach them. Like, and the mayor had mentioned one of his concerns for doing it maybe on a Friday would be doing it in the courtyard park. If it's too loud, they can actually hear that in the court, in the courtrooms or whatever else. Again, all I simply have to do is either turn the mic, turn it down, turn it, maybe just use it on that Saturday at that location, but maybe on a Friday, I can go over to a basketball park and use it there in another location on Friday. I'm very aware of being a member of the community, and not that type of nuisance. I do know that those things will probably come up, but you know, that's my heart. Again, it's not just for these people. It's not, I'm not here representing myself. It's really trying to help out the city.
And I appreciate the work. that you
You're welcome.
do. It is amazing and it's needed.
If you don't mind, Mayor, may I run through this quickly?
Well, that was, yeah, let me just say, it's the whole open-endedness, the wherever, basically whenever, you know, between the hours of 10 and 6, that I have a problem with. And if you were standing on the corner of Court Street and Main Street, where are all the people going to be who are listening to you? I mean, they will gather.
Some people could just be walking by, they
Okay.
stop, we have a conversation, and then they continue on with their day. Obviously, if it becomes a scene, we're moving to another location because I don't want anything unsafe or unseemly to happen. Yeah,
Thank you.
and that's typically what it would be. It would be, hey, you know what, I'm gonna wrap up my stuff, put it in my car, I'm gonna go over and park at the diner. And then I'm gonna, you know, get out and I'll just be posted up there at that intersection. One of my favorite intersections is down here at Clinton and, Route 13 in Clinton. Right down there, I would post up there and I'd be playing music, and the amount of people that honk their horns and wave and say thank you, you know, because I have a really big sign, and I get more positive feedback here in this town than I have ever gotten in any other location that I have gone and I've done this type of work at. And that in itself really does encourage me, and it shows that Portland wants this.
So everybody else have any other questions? So if you want to read that real quick and then
Thank you.
call the vote.
So again, my name is Scott Heath. I am invested in helping the city of Portland, invested by the First Amendment and the Constitution, to address the drug and alcohol addiction problems, as well as the well-being of the homeless members of our community. My care and concern does not start or stop there. I understand the message I carry, which is one of conquering my own personal childhood absent father wounds, which led me to years of drug abuse and other self-destructive behaviors, is one that is not necessarily accepted by everyone. My hope is that in having a permit for amplification, I will draw the attention of many others, not as a nuisance, which I have suggestions for, but for everyone to recognize someone else is out there on the streets of our dear city pressing in to make a change. As I started, I said I am invested in this city. With my time, money, and talents, I have spent the last 8 of the past 10 weekends coming down to Portland, missing only 2 weekends for a wedding I officiated and a vacation with my family. I have a growing trust and building relationships with several people walking our streets. I've provided them both with healthy food and ice water or Gatorade during these hot summer days, and maybe once or twice some donuts. I have also recently bought a website called crownmission.com, and it will be built by Ryan Carr of Zone Management. Not to mention, I've also taken time off tonight from work to be here. My investments is for the foreseeable future. There are others I have caught the eye and ear of while I have already used my device a few times in public. They are encouraged to help me in my approach. As far as I am aware, there have not been any complaints. But I do not want to go about this illegally. I do want to go about this the right way. I incorporate music and public speaking when using my device. There are others playing music in the parks above 90 decibels, and I never see anyone making complaints. As for the concern of the nuisance and noise, I have studied for hours the decibel codes of many cities and towns. We do not have such decibel codes in our bylaws. I know this is priority number 10 on your bucket list, but I am here to offer my assistance in helping us come up with a revised standard bylaw in the future. OSHA states that the noise exceeding 85 decibels for the length of time can be damaging to the ears. Fireworks are at 150 decibels. The average size dog barks at 120 decibels. Concerts are 110 decibels. Construction sites are 90 decibels, and a garbage disposal is 80 decibels. Most cities and even some small towns allow their business districts up to 85 decibels until 11 p.m. or later, while in residential areas up to 75 decibels at the property line of the resident. Reading unreasonable or excessive noise in business or commercial districts is usually read from the property line of the business or location such as a park. In a residential neighborhood, the decibel reading is taken from the property line of the complaint. I am suggesting 80 decibels for commercial areas and public areas such as parks, and 75 decibels in residentially zoned areas. As a community, you will have to define the times in your bylaws, but these are some of my findings from the research that I have done. And then I just had written down the other stuff.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have a question?
So I think if we go forward as is, the outcome is not gonna be favorable. I feel that if you were to add a location and times list and be more specific, now you don't have to say, I will be at, I'm going to use these parks and these places. That I will be there between these times, no longer than this amount of time per time. I can feel it up here. There's just not warm fuzzies about open-ended and being able to travel with it. And I think that's all the way across.
Okay.
I
You
do-
sort of deal with the nonprofits
Right, and I,
somehow, some way, because it just,
yep, if the church sponsored you, then you are not. But,
The church is in the.
Yes.
Right,
but if they you're right.
but it would have to, the church would have to.
But I think the biggest thing isn't that hang up for most of us. I mean, I hope if I'm out of line, somebody tell me I'm wrong. The hang up is gonna be to get enough yeses tonight. We would need a list, I'm not gonna stay out longer than 4 or 5 hours. I'm going to stay to these areas. I think the fear became, when we started talking about things, is a speaker is a backpack walking down the street being an annoyance, which I don't feel after speaking with you is your intention at all. However, I think I'm generalizing what would make it work for us as a group, that we kind of just, it's too open-ended. I think you're gonna have more yes votes if we make this more specific.
What if we just go with 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in parks?
I'm still not clear on the waiving the $250 per day agency fee.
According to what we have,
That's secondary.
Okay,
you have previously acknowledged that you're not acting as a part of the religious organization, the church.
So I tell you what, I think we should do here, well, I think there's some changes that need to be discussed. I think I'm Jeff, I don't know what everybody's about, I think we do it too as well. And we can work out some more of those specific details, maybe come back with a different resolution and it'll be more specific to that. I'm not gonna make those kind of big amendments to a resolution.
Right.
no, it's too big,
Because
it's too big.
if there, we're gonna get that more generic, more that more specific. I think some more discussion should be had.
Scott,
Yes.
we're all here for you. I think you sense it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I just gotta be careful what we're doing here because we broke up the can work through with you.
It has- it has
We're not here
repercussions.
trying to,
Yeah,
you know, and I can raise my voice, believe me.
How many decibels?
No, but I'm just,
But I think wording needs to be in there because as Ms. Sullivan alluded to, as far as a neighbor playing offensive music. Everybody has a right to the First Amendment. We also have a right to not necessarily hear that if it's offensive.
Yeah.
If somebody finds it offensive, that has to be dealt with. So I think maybe being more specific in that, in our resolution towards doing that, might get us to where we need to go and not set that precedence of somebody not being of, good mind. You know, I mean, it could be, good mind is not a really, good, for good intent. You know, people could do this for now intent, and that's something I think the board is showing the consideration of. Right. So I think we should go back to it, I'll call the vote, I'll back to it, I'll try to work on something.
Sounds great.
But the discussion about decibels was interesting. So thank you.
And at some point, we will deal with that, we've talked about.
yeah,
that.
we didn't, you have
We have a
bylaws.
decibel, right, we have a decibel, reader downstairs, the police department that I gave them all, and so they use that, the parties and say, hey, this is at 85. You can't have it above 85 at your neighbor's property line, we can keep it below that, and some of the new devices and systems we put on it. The lights will have that ability to read that, so we'll know the breaking this before we get there. So, but that's another
So are we
story.
voting this or shall we?
So I'm
Table.
going, I'm not gonna table it because I won't accept any of the big,
Okay.
so we're gonna vote on it, and he understands why.
The alternative to putting the check in the box for non-for-profit is what? It's commercial and,
Hey,
Hey,
well, it is pay. But
I can,
what are those
I
two
can-
words there? It's commercial and,
I think with this, this separation of church and state, I don't know that that would be able, they have done without.
I just felt that I didn't fall in that category under pay, that it's, if you look at the wording, like, I'm not, it seems like it's for profit or like for political purposes or whatever the case is.
AJ, you want to stab at that or not?
Ultimately, I don't think you hear me, but the purpose of that box is for legally recognized not-for-profit organizations. 501c3s, people who have tax status as legal not-for-profits, right? It's not an open-ended opportunity, and I don't mean to stuff.
Right, but he's saying he didn't want to check the alternate box because he didn't think that applied to him either, so he
Right.
wasn't sure what to check.
but he's not a nonprofit.
Being somebody
That's what it is.
Legally
He's a
defined.
private citizen who wants to exercise his
Right.
First Amendment right,
Right,
freedom
right,
of speech,
right,
which
right.
everyone has.
Right.
Yep. As long as it's not offensive, as long as it doesn't defame, as long as it doesn't, whatever that other list, the rest of that list is. By his own admission, sir, this is not a church-sponsored event.
Right,
It's open-ended, it amounts to a service. That's just not something that my legal opinion, the city of Portland should
Setting a precedent.
get involved.
So again, that'll have to be addressed.
It has nothing to do with the sound, pay the fee, consider it every time. You know, sound permit application or awarding of a permit is not a right. It's something that you folks get to do in your discretion. You can speak, but you don't have that right necessarily. And I think that's what you guys have to consider here. So whether or not, whatever this message is, you're gonna allow it. Open it.
Well said, AJ, thank you.
Thanks, AJ.
All right, with that, I'm gonna call the vote, please.
Councilmember Scott,
Nay.
Councilmember Sullivan,
maybe.
Councilmember Pinello,
Nay,
Councilmember Lane,
nay.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Nay.
Thank you.
Oh, there. Do I have to resubmit another application?
I don't know, we'll get together, we'll have to redo it at some point, because you're checking not-for-profit box, we'll have to talk about that, and then we'll get set that up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, God bless.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 3, authorize city fire department to hire 2 firefighters in conclusion of retirements.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council grants authority to the fire chief to hire 2 additional firefighters above authorized staffing levels, to commence their training to lessen the impact of the anticipated staffing shortage resulting from the stated intent of 2 firefighters to retire in the first half of 2024.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, so
Y'all.
Everybody's.
We are.
Mr. Mello and Ms. Lang, please.
Even though they don't know.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you didn't know this.
so the, again, this is because it takes so long to get them into the fire academy. The police chief actually saw this, was discussing it with me today as well, in anticipation of other retirees. We get ahead of it, it's so much easier, not taxing on other people, other, department heads, so I think they've asked to have interviews before this vote, but they've had some reviews and some interviews. Some people are trying to get those candidates so they can make the fire academy, which is one chief. Middle of the month, so that's why it's so imperative that we try to get this out, so we get that happening. And we're not expending energy and time and overtime, and burning our people out trying to cover those shifts when we don't have. That's the plan. We have any questions? Okay, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Agenda item number 4, authorize repair of wastewater Morris pump and components to emergency purchase orders for the contract totaling 55,462.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council hereby authorizes an emergency purchase order in lieu of issuing a request for proposals for a contract with Emmons Metro LLC to repair the wastewater treatment facility's Morris sludge pump. And be it further resolved that the common council hereby authorizes the appropriation of $55,462 from wastewater equipment reserves to fund necessary repairs.
So moved.
That's
So then, Mr. Beckwith. So I think it's pretty much clear what's happening here. So Bruce's stuff is always expensive. And difficult and not necessarily clean, but. So and that's what the reserves are for. Fortunately, the reserves aren't as high as we want them to be, right, Bruce? But we'll keep moving towards that direction. Anybody have any questions? Please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Agenda item number 5, authorize mayor to submit a municipal approval letter for the cannabis growers showcase event. The city's general business regional zoning district GB1.
Resolved that the common council hereby authorizes the organization of a cannabis growers showcase event at 156 Clinton Avenue. Conditioned on the organizer's compliance with the rules, regulations, and requirements set forth by the Office of Cannabis Management. And be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to submit a municipal approval letter to the Office of Cannabis Management in support of this cannabis growers showcase event for a period to expire on January 1st, 2024, as is consistent with the temporary nature of the New York State approved program.
I'll move.
Scott, Mr. Beckwith. So, just a quick history here. So the, cannabis office is slowly getting their, licenses out for the cannabis selling areas. And, due to that, the growers have created a big surplus. And, a short-term effort to resolve that while some lawsuits and things get cleared up as far as as far as the regulations from the cannabis bureau to get their licenses. They have set up this growers, growers surplus, so basically a way to get these growers to get these items out. And the grower showcase is what they're calling it, and it ends at the end of the year, so we're in hopes to have that done. The site that is being, that is listed as the address is where the Lake House Cannabis was going to go in the corner, which was already approved in that district before. But this would be under somebody else's license and be managed by the Lake House Cannabis Group. So it would be a good way to see and watch how we can manage that better to eliminate any issues in the future.
They had this at the New York State Fair, and the report from there was that it was very safe and extremely successful. So, I mean, again, my statement's been this since the beginning. The genie's out of the bottle, and I'm putting it back. So, I mean, at this point, it's revenue.
3% of that. So, anybody else have any questions?
Will they be mindful people of what the local laws are regarding where you can smoke it?
I'm sure that they would be willing to put a published document out on their counter and put that out on their counter to remind them not to smoke in public areas in the street and something like that.
We just said the schools.
Anybody else? Okay, move it please.
Councilmember Scott,
Aye.
Councilmember Silliman,
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello,
Aye.
Councilmember Lane,
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Okay, on the discussion items, Parker School, so people that were at that committee, Parker School's going well, I actually got another developer talking today, wants to set up a meeting. So to discuss a local developer, so that's good, so we've been able to generate some interest, we've talked about different things from a temporary incubator site to do incubation site as well as multi-use kind of stuff. So some good conversations, some good demographics, we reviewed, you know, how and why the school district made their decision and what the demographics look like. And we decided that we would recruit people that are 20 to 29 years old, that's where we're losing them. So we need to work on that, which brought up the attention grabber for that to happen, so we can continue to work on that, to create a school overcrowding problem, that would be a good thing to have, personally. But if there's any other highlights that I bring up, thanks for.
Demographics was very telling. That was very telling.
Yeah,
Yeah, some good dialogues, good people, and we appreciate their efforts and volunteering for that, and we'll continue on that again next week. So that's the Parker School update. Foreclosures. Melvin will be coming up here in a minute. Just so we're kind of putting a unique event with New York State and our foreclosures. AJL, maybe give us a brief overview of where we're at, some ideas that we've been batting around to try to do it. We had planned on foreclosing on properties this year, but it's kind of been at a stay.
Yep, and just to bring everyone to present, we use moratoriums twice. New York State had a moratorium on moving forward with any tax foreclosure sales during the coronavirus pandemic. So the city of Portland anyway had years 2018, 2019 to 2020 kind of sitting in limbo. And once they lifted that moratorium, we decided to move forward with that process. We give people ample time to redeem their taxes, extra time, we could have cut it off way before. We're still allowing that to occur. But in the interim, the Supreme Court of the United States issued a decision. I got the site here. It's known as the Tyler case. This just came down a couple of months ago. And basically what it says is that if a municipality goes through that interim tax foreclosure process and seeks to auction a property off or sell it by way of tax sale certificate, anything above and beyond that outstanding tax amount of interest and fees that would be associated with that tax sale, surplus funds would have to go to the property. The issue is, there are many states, and New York State is not alone, that no local processes or state level processes contemplate that, right? Some municipalities may already do it, but it also doesn't talk about other lien holders, mortgage companies, things like that. So what the New York State legislature has attempted to do, and I think it's just sitting around, it hasn't been signed by the governor, but it passed the assembly, it passed the Senate, is to put a moratorium on that particular process. And while they figure out what they're gonna do with the state level interim tax foreclosure statute process, which is what the city of Portland relies on for our tax foreclosures. Our charter says, I think it's 2 sentences, that we adopt the New York State real property tax law, Article 11, process and any amendments thereto. We don't know what that's gonna look like yet. We've already initiated this process and we've been bouncing around a bunch of ideas, ultimately like deal with the housing issue in Portland and some of these flooded properties. One idea, and I think it's just, it was the mayor's idea, we just talked about it, what are we gonna do? We can't just keep these properties vacant, right? We can't just keep letting these properties sit without paying taxes. is to RFP them and, you know, kind of vet what the property is gonna do, or what that new property owner can do.
All right, so the process would be this, so currently now, somebody owes us $20,000. If we auction that property off, and we sold it for $30,000, we'd have to keep sending a check back for $10,000. Even though they ran that property into the ground, they didn't light it in the neighborhood, and decreased the property values of them or surrounding it. So that's kind of a frustrating attack, and I don't know that nobody's ever gone back, because the decision hasn't made to fight that. So one thought we thought about doing is we RFP the property and said, all right, we need $20,000 to make us whole. You get us $20,000, and what else are you going to do to that property? So if you say I'm gonna replace the windows on the side and roof it, or redo the inside, at the point of paying the $20,000 and doing the exterior of the work, the property, we would release that cover. And I think there's 2 families that we have, let's say, we can work some events, and somebody might come up and say, look, I'm gonna move into it, I'm gonna live there for 10 years, I'm gonna live there for 5 years. You know, we pick single property owner that goes there for 10, and what they're going to do with that property to better the community backing. So I think it might even be a better way long term, because, you know, getting them, some people make those investments. And Mr. Michaels is here, we had one person who's been pushing in his district that, you know, made that investment 2-3 years ago, and they'll get around to it. And we live with that related property even longer. So I think this would get it off and provide these people that look for 6-family homes or 2-family homes or multi-family homes, we have to do, and we have better ideas and control of what is going on in that property. So that's the process.
And that's so many ideas I think you can kick around there, but ultimately, the impact of this Tyler decision leaves us kind of in limbo, right? That, we could have pulled the trigger on that idea today, but for this United States Supreme Court decision. Which basically says that, I'll just read the decision, that the tax collecting entity has to retain any excess or overage from the proceeds garnered by the tax collection process. If we keep those, it's a violation of the Fifth Amendment and takings clause. And most municipalities don't have this. But the problem becomes, what's the value of the property, right? Like, if we do it this way, we just need New York State to figure out how they're gonna contemplate this decision. Once we have that, we know how we can move forward. Whether we put it in an escrow account, whether we RFP it, whatever the case may be. But what's surplus? If we sell it for $5,000, and because that's what they owed us, or they owe us $5,000, we sell it for $10,000, but the property was appraised at $50,000. You know, where does value come into play? Unfortunately, I think that the Tyler decision, and I talk a lot about this with tax law experts, doesn't provide direct guidance on what that means for each individual state. Instantly though, regardless, I think this would just be my suggestion. We're in the middle of that process. Put everyone on notice, we created extra ample time for people to redeem their taxes. A lot of people have, I think we're contemplating 10 properties for those 3 years. I don't think there's any harm in us getting those judgments in the interim. And so once we do have that clarity, once New York State does make a decision on how they're gonna contemplate this Supreme Court decision, we have those things in place that we can move forward right away. RFP, so this has that widespread implications. What do we do? And that's what New York State's trying to figure out if we rely on their process. So this would be one great idea.
Yeah, so I'd like to, you know, that's what the discussion is about. Number one, you know, that we're kind of in a holding pattern with that. I mean, one property, and I think it's in bankruptcy again, and that was 10 years, that was 2009.
Yeah, 15 years worth of back tax.
15 years of back tax. And remember, the 2 things I want to discuss is we make our school district and our county, we make everybody whole. And we're carrying that burden.
Right, we're the bankers.
At the end of time. So that's something we're gonna discuss further and try to look at different, so I guess look for that coming down. And on this foreclosure part of it, you know, after trying to come up with creative solutions to get out of dodging that cost, you know, the more I think about it, and the more I discuss it, and look at those individual properties that are on that list of 9, if you take the post office off of it, it's 9. So that, those 10 properties that we have, we could, it might be a better use to be able to do that and try to get that windfall and that other dollar to be able to give that, opportunities to others and to curb what the appetite of what that area could use. And I think we can list some ideas, or I don't know, we just have to think about the law, how the zoning, where the zoning board is looking at the best interest in the area, the planning board, input from both of them, and not, I want to make sure names are on it, so they're listed separately, so I guess give that some thought, and give some feedback, but I'd like to follow through that, unless anybody sees any real objection to that. I'd like to follow through, I think it would be a great, interesting concept to move this another way, and again, we have to wait for a law.
It'd be nice to have that plan
In place.
ready to go, once we get those
Exactly.
judgments in New York State tells us this is gonna be okay, because.
And
What they were arguing is that the takings clause is being violated by keeping, funds in excess of the property's value, right? Well, how do we quantify the property's value? What is that? And that's what New York State's gotta figure out.
If you sell it just
You had it
for
appraised the
the
day of the auction.
taxes, for the cost of those taxes, you don't have those extra funds, so how?
That's what I would argue, that we, and at some point, I'll be patient as long as we can, and we're just gonna give and seek permission for
But I think it would benefit the city to move forward with getting those judgments.
Yeah.
And having the mechanism in place to pursue whatever avenue will best. You are.
And that is.
This was a blockbuster to see.
Yeah, we keep expecting it to be resolved.
States are.
Like the county pushed on and they're doing, they're going ahead with the auction, I think it's closed. Right?
I'm
I
not
think it was the end of the month, yeah, it's there, it's closed. So they just finished there, so I don't, we'll see how that ends up with them, I think
Yeah.
they're gonna hold the money, the excess in escrow, so they go back at it. But that's an option, I think, why do that, it could take years, let's move to something else.
But I very much like the idea of holding people accountable for making those fixes.
Yes.
So it doesn't just turn over and become another slum under different names.
Yeah, exactly, and I think there's ways to put those in place, but when we get the outside fixed. After the accomplishment, get people occupy and live and walk the city and be part of it is also.
And be proud of it.
Be proud of it.
Those clarifications you gotta wait for, are what constitutes just compensation? And what can we? At what point can we get rid of these properties and not have return? Because if you pay a homeowner excess funds. And they had a mortgage as well, because it's tax sale, city's gonna get sued by that mortgage company for not giving them their.
Yeah, sure.
Things that have to be worked out.
All right, so we'll fall through those proposals and more to come.
Good idea.
Anybody have any questions on that? Anybody else, anything else to bring up?
I'll note that I distributed a memo from the Environmental Advisory Committee on recommendations on forest stewardship planning for the waterworks, and I sent it via email short time ago to you as well.
Yes, so we will be discussing and working together with the state on resolution towards them helping us. All right, anybody else? All right, motion to adjourn. Scott? Slane, all those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Yeah, help you to parking and stuff in case they have.